100% behind Q. He's working for the president. He's working for our country.
Alien life, like pedophiles, and it just seeks to tie all of that together.
Welcome to the 14th episode of the QAnon Anonymous podcast. Today's episode is titled Midterm Election Comeback. I'm your host, Jake.
And I'm your co-host, Julian. And we are joined by Travis View.
Jake and Julian, it's always a pleasure to be here.
Guest number one guest, as usual. You know, we're here this week, a little bit in disarray. We've had a big meal.
Yes.
We're being flooded by Q drops.
Yes.
And we're stressed out because we're days away from the election.
A lot going on this week. A lot going on the podcast. What we're going to do tonight, I think, is go over the most recent drops. As many of you know, Q has been on a little bit of a hiatus, which has been puzzling to us, especially because this would seem to be the perfect time for Q to sort of plant a flag in the midterms. So,
especially since it was Red October, and people were wondering why arrests weren't happening quite yet.
He did fuck up by giving a name to the month and then literally waiting until November to post.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand. Like, if you want to seem coherent, you're really having to have your fans defend you online in this case.
Yeah, and I mean, if he was referring to like the shitty submarine movie that came out this month that didn't do very well, I don't know.
Well, a lot of people explained it by saying that, actually, Q was referring to the Russian Red October.
Yes, of course.
Which started on November 7th, technically. So that's the real Red October, the day after the election.
Why would Russia call something October when it's in November?
Because the difference between the Gregorian and the Julian calendar.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I didn't know I had a calendar.
It's why they give Christmas presents on New Year's, you know. So I'm scrolling back through the Q drops
because he came back, but he didn't just come back. He came back with volume. Like he was spam. It's like Q spamming.
Yeah, which seems so. Yeah, which seems so. You would think if you've got a month to prepare like a grand slam post that's going to get everybody riled up and tilt everything slightly towards the right on the midterms. I don't know if these posts are going to do it.
It feels thrown together a little bit.
It feels, you know what it feels reactive. Whereas most of the Q posts, people react to them. This feels sort of like reactive to the communities. I guess on Reddit they call it concern trolling.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so let's actually go through these drops. I'm going to start actually on November 1st, which is when he first appeared. And we're going to kind of break each of these down as we go through and sort of see if we can decipher any meaning.
It's a live show.
On November 1st, 7:44 p.m., he writes, "Do not let them divide you. Together, you are strong. Together, you win. Your vote matters." Reread drops, re-polls. And then he links to two government websites that talk about voting resources and political activities.
He's just a get out the vote guy.
Also, these links also talk about the Hatch Act.
Oh.
Yeah, which is the reason why he should currently not be posting. So that's a very snake eating its own tail kind of thing.
Yeah, here's a question. I mean, with the Hatch Act, isn't it technically like you cannot post anything that could influence an election 30 days before that election?
Yeah.
So wouldn't his return before the election...
He had to justify that he was gone, right? And if that was like their main theory, he just figured, hey, I'll just feed it back to them and we can move on.
Yeah, but there's got to be somebody in the fucking peanut gallery that's like, well, but he's back and the election hasn't happened yet. So technically, like, couldn't he then be accused of violating the Hatch Act? Although I guess he's not posting anything that is election sort of swaying. Something like, a video of Hillary Clinton eating a child.
Yeah, right.
He's literally an anonymous internet poster. He could post anything he wants, anytime he wants. No laws apply to completely anonymous posters.
If you recall, the Q community also came up with the Hatch Act as an excuse for why there weren't any arrests in October. Yeah. So he might be just sort of reaffirming that excuse. Be like,
that's what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
You were right. You were smart. You did your research.
Figured it out.
You knew why I failed you.
You knew why I left for 30 days.
You don't need me to explain why I don't love you. That I'm only back because my second job and my other family hates me now.
So then the next post, He quotes himself, which he does a lot, and he quotes two earlier posts. One is kind of your general, don't ask questions, think for yourself. You're united. They want you to live in fear. And then the one below it says, every CIA MOS, which I believe stands for Mossad, tactic of infiltration and internal disruption is being deployed on this board, parentheses, central hub. The world is here.
Another anti-Semitic head nod.
Recognize. This movement is bigger than anyone can possibly imagine. Peace through strength. And you know what's funny? When I read that peace through strength, I was like, that sounds eerily like something a dictator might say. It's like
Peace through strength is 100%.
This is like
not right.
Okay, and so then after quoting those two old posts, he writes, they're actually quotes from President Trump's one of his rallies, and he says, we have to bypass the media in order to get straight to the people. We've gone around them like no one in history has gone around them. POTUS at tonight's rally. Think MSM attacks, Q, we the people, Q. So he's basically saying that Trump's saying we've gone around them like no one in history has gone around them is basically Trump saying, hey, this is the way we've gone around them is Q.
Most of history involves the vast majority of people being illiterate and no major media output. So what he's saying is just dumb.
But it's also, the thing is that Trump does this a lot where he'll say,
he's like, ever since the Egyptian pharaohs.
Well, yeah, he'll say like, oh, I'm drinking this beer right now, and it's the best beer. It's probably the best beer I've ever drank, and maybe even the best beer you've ever drank. Trump just sort of adds that. He's like a teenage girl who goes like, best weekend ever. Yeah, it's kind of like he does. So the thing is, it doesn't hold the kind of weight for me that I hoped it would.
It's definitely far from like spy stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're taking this quote of like Trump sort of embellishing and blustering and say that he's doing something in a way that nobody else in the world has done. It doesn't feel specific.
Not only does it not feel specific, but also, I mean, it feels a little tone deaf. After all these mass shootings by white supremacists and people who believed in anti-Semitic propaganda, to kind of again hit the CIA Mossad thing, or it's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I would think that Q would at the very least try to offer some kind of explanation, saying he's one of us, or saying like false flags, making some sort of accusation that these shootings that have happened in the last couple days are some kind of desperate attempt by the Democrats to cast doubt on whether or not an all Republican ticket is really your way to go.
That would mean that the Democrats are better at radicalizing and convincing people to kill themselves for the cause than like ISIS, basically.
Yeah.
To plot a whole history of social media that shows like 2 years of a man coming unhinged as he watches Fox News, it just seems a little bit like, can we just go for the easy answer here, guys? It does just
incredible planning.
Yeah. He also does some mental gymnastics, posting a couple tweets and placing them next to Q drops and saying, is mathematically impossible or every detailed plan today, 1 year ago. And basically, he does this every now and again, where he'll take Trump's tweets and his post will be at the exact same time as Trump's tweet, or a minute after, or something like that.
Well, when you're both spamming, like, it's not hard.
Okay, here we go. This is a big one. He includes probably like 30 news article links on this post, and it's mostly about the synagogue shooting and saying how basically that the mainstream media is using the synagogue shooting to drum up fear and hatred of the Republican base. And he writes, ask yourself a very simple question. Why is the fake news media continually expending resources to defame, debunk, and cast as a conspiracy for, as they say, a nobody who started on 4chan? Why did the fake news media attempt to cast blame of recent events on the Q movement? I don't know if they did.
Did they?
But I guess all of these I kind of guess all of these articles that he linked to sort of do.
I mean, every article about Q, unless it's
Right.
literally just written by someone slightly unhinged, is just basically debunking
goes-
it because it's so easy to
He
do.
goes, was it an attempt to silence? Sample past 7 days. And then he lists like all of these links, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end, he writes, all for a LARP? I love that shit. And he goes, attack those who threaten you the most. Are we subject to the Hatch Act? Think executive branch /NSA /etc. If I had to decode, I would say he's going, are the executive branch, the NSA, etc. The
Staying
etc.
quiet?
kind of bothers me.
Are they staying quiet?
Yeah, are they subject to the Hatch Act?
Also, can we talk about how Trump and Israel are super aligned
Yeah.
in the Zionist thing,
Big,
but
big.
yet the Mossad is working against that? Why? That makes no sense. The Mossad is literally in the service of the government. of
Unless
Israel.
there is a section of Mossad that is...
Anti-Zionist? That makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense actually. Unless there would be, I mean, you could do some aerobics to suppose that there is a branch within Mossad that is,
Yeah.
your deep state or your could possibly be American intel operators that are working for Mossad that have allegiances to a non-Trump America, maybe.
I'll let Travis handle this, I guess.
All right. I imagine a lot of Q people would love a sort of a deep state within Mossad trying to undermine Zionism.
Yeah.
They
It does go to the core of that contradiction, though. Like, is it the Jews or not the Jews? Is it Israel or not Israel? Like, doesn't...
Yeah, and like
How do we feel about the Jewish people? It's not clear.
yeah, well, and now what I'm hearing sort of from the liberals on this is that Israel is anti-Semitic. That Israel in Israel in and of itself is like they liked Israel maybe at one point like a couple years ago, but now that Trump has sort of stood up for them and they've looked into Israel
The
a little
Jewish
bit.
ethno-state hates the Jews.
Yeah, they go, maybe Israel's not such good guys after all. Otherwise, they would never align themselves with somebody like Donald Trump.
I think this is sort of why, Q is able to attract people both who are anti-Semitic and people who are uncomfortable with anti-Semitism because his stance on Israel and is so incoherent that you can sort of read any meaning you want into it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's with most of his drops. I mean, that's the beauty of it is that you can read really any way you want into any of it. So he goes on. He says, are we subject to the Hatch Act? Think executive branch, NSA, etc. Acceptable to quote turn on comms?
Well, that's the appeal of Q is like Q isn't telling people what to believe. Q is just offering lines of research, and then people discover the truth for themselves.
Well, and that he actually that goes right to his next line. He says cannot point to any particular candidate or party prior to November 7th. So he's basically, I would take this sentence to mean that if you go back and look at all of the Q drops, that he's not necessarily pointing to a particular candidate, so that can't, so he can't violate the Hatch Act, which is complete bullshit. I mean anybody who watches
Being a Trump cheerleader.
yeah, it's a Trump cheerleader the whole time.
Yeah.
Maybe he's talking about specifically saying Republican or candidates, like anybody who's actually running in the midterms.
Yeah, I think,
Because he has not, as far as I know.
again, he's an anonymous guy posting on a fucking shitty message board. He can do whatever he wants.
Then he writes, "We the people, all caps, fight, fight, fight. Your vote matters. We are in this together. This movement has no skin color." Attempts, that must mean white.
This
If you have no color in your skin, you must be white.
This movement is against pigment.
This movement has no skin color. That's so funny. You could totally read it like that. This movement has no skin color. Or you could read it like, this movement has no skin color at all in our skin. We are colorless.
Read the next line, though.
Attempts to label all those who challenge their narrative as racists, white supremacists
yes.
will fail. Predictable. Q.
Yeah,
I think that's a pretty strong
pretty defensive.
anti-racism, anti-white supremacism sort of statement.
Oh yeah.
So I mean,
He's covering
He's
his
not at all
tracks.
saying, listen, people are saying we're that, but we know that you're wrong to say that. Also, they'll be dead soon, don't worry.
And then he writes, okay, so the next drop, this was from November 2nd. He writes, there is a reason why we encourage memes so much. There is a reason.
We aren't fucking stupid, okay?
There is a reason why we came here to drop. There is a reason why they
4chan?
Why they are all working overtime to build code to censor and defend against memes. Reread drops re-memes, all just a coincidence, directed at Q, fire when ready. Okay, so I looked into this a little bit. And what it seems like he's talking about is that memes, because they're pictures, cannot be picked up by the censorship algorithms on social media.
But they can, because they have written algorithms to stop people from posting revenge porn and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So
they're scared the technology is being evolved. They could detect the face of a frog and maybe a swastika, and it would take down all their memes, and it's awful.
Yeah, or like they would be able to somehow detect a gray face with very limited features.
Yeah, no more NPC memes. They're so damaging.
This is something else where Q is just making people feel more involved, like they're doing something significant by sitting at their computer and blasting out memes. This is something that Q has been encouraging, like ever since like the beginning of the year. There was a huge sort of release the memo sort of meme campaign, and people were on 8chan. People were organizing and creating memes and creating this huge repository of memes in which they used to sort of just spam over and over again with certain hashtags. It's extremely organized when they want to do a sort of a meme campaign, and it makes them feel like I have to imagine it makes them feel like they're like really warriors. Their pulse quickens. They get excited to be like, oh, I'm sort of overtaking the media narrative. Twitter and the MSM, they want to brainwash people, but I'm like, I'm in the trenches.
My daughter keeps telling me I can't eat red meat or drink coffee anymore, and this still gets me going.
Right. Well, and in a classic, in a classic sort of far right fashion, they've homed in on something that they're kind of unchallenged at, because I would say that the one true thing that I do believe that stemmed sort of from all this shit is that the left cannot meme.
I think they just have less interest in it.
Exactly. They're not as there's a reason for it. It's like,
well, they're just not as nasty at the base.
Yeah, they're not as nasty, and they're not as
they actually do them to be funny instead of do them to like harm other people. Well, the right loves to see it as a weapon. The left just sees it as comedy.
Right, but the left, the memes are, the production value is much better because you have better artists and better designers and people who genuinely sort of have an understanding of what comedy is. There's irony and there's farce. The right-wing memes don't have any of that. They're crudely drawn. There's no satire. It's just...
They're vicious and angry.
Yeah, they're vicious and angry, and that works for political memes better than comedy does, in a weird way.
I think there's something to the left can't meme thing. I think it's because that if you feel like you can get accurate news from like the New York Times or CNN, if you can turn to these sorts of mainstream sources and get real information on what's happening in the world, you really don't feel the need to use these sorts of guerrilla warfare information tactics like memeing.
Right.
And whereas the right, they feel like well, just the left or liberals, they control the mainstream narrative, and so the only way anyone's going to hear sort of my perspective, my ideas, if I do it myself. And so they get sort of more familiar with how social media works, how it distributes information, because they're forced to in order to make their voice heard. Yeah. It's that sort of like gritty sort of desperation. This is the only way people are going to hear my ideas, because the mainstream media isn't going to do it.
So the necessity is what
creates
creates
the left
good
doesn't
meme.
Need to meme.
Yeah, they don't. That's a really good point. The left doesn't, because all of the left all of the what would you call them? The NPCs on Twitter. It's all kind of the same thing. It's like Trump and his cabinet in like orange jumpsuits, and like Mueller's sort of standing by them, like waving, saying like "Have a good trip" or like something like that. they're just not. They don't have that visceral. You don't have a visceral reaction to it like you do.
I think
like
also young lefties don't really like boomer era like resistance people.
Yeah,
they think
totally.
they're lame, and they are. And whereas in the right, they worship like both these fucking old generation of shitty, awful Republicans, while also being like,
while also
we're
honoring
19 and
yeah.
we're angry and we hate women and we're gonna fucking post.
Yeah, there's definitely there's so much more unity on that side. It's really fucked up and scary actually when you think about it. When when I go onto like political threads or whatever, on Reddit or the other message boards, what is usually like pretty apparent is that all of the right-wing people are usually like very much in agreement with each other, and then you go into like a more liberal or like left-leaning message board and everybody's jumping on each other and attacking each other for not using the right language or the proper terms, and they're you're not left enough, or and that's it's interesting because it's like what you just said is like the right is so much more accepting of all of the levels that have come before them and potentially who will come after them.
Well, because oftentimes they act out of the will to harm or destroy the other, and that's an easier outcome, right? Destruction is always easier. So if you all agree that you want like the PC culture destroyed, it's much easier than like, how can we build a society together that works?
Right.
It's like, of course, there's going to be more disagreement about the latter. The former, the result is like, who cares how you get there, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of insight in the idea that a lot of people, conservatives are on the right, just want to own the libs, because that's sort of like
there's pleasure there.
Well, that it's sort of like a broad, disparate coalition. Like they're conservatives, like maybe like libertarian types, or maybe are uncomfortable with like racism, but they sort of like form a coalition with the racists because they're both united in their desire to own the libs.
Yeah, it's
like
like
the left.
It's like, I will overlook your overt racism because you and I are together in a united in this fight to defeat the people who are against you, are trying to take away your values.
The end justify the means for them, and I think it's difficult to fight fascism because it is such a simplification of reality.
And you know what?
It's like,
what you nailed what the problem is. What the difference is I think between the right wing memes and left wing memes is that the right wing memes are very simplified. They're this very simplified version of reality, whereas the left wing memes people are uncomfortable telling outright falsities, I think, on a certain degree, and so there's almost too much information in them that they kind of lose the
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 memes
thing
have
that
context.
the memes kind of have context and they're well made, and so they lose the thing. A meme is a very, very specific type of, it elicits a very specific response, and it's a specific type of humor.
Go off, King.
It's very hard to recreate. Like, I don't think I could sit at a computer and come up with like a decent meme that could go viral on either side. Really, I think that they're very difficult to
just a picture of your face next to a picture of your dick would be
to
good.
like hone in on.
Hilarious.
I mean, isn't that what the dark web's for though?
I thought it was for buying illegal drugs and soliciting child prostitutes.
Buying a fresh eighth of adrenochrome.
In a baggie from someone in a back alley.
All right, what's the next? What's the next Q drop? So none of these are all that exciting so far.
They're not that good. It's kind of like going through your spam folder.
Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, totally. It's like, don't forget to vote.
So the next Q drop says it's a giant image, and it says Q has not violated the Hatch Act, and it says why did select senior members of the D Party 6 send a letter to Don McGahn in early October outlining Hatch Act violations regarding Q? FOIA works in this situation. Q.
So he's saying there is a document.
But nobody tried. Nobody on the left is attempting to do anything about Q. They don't fucking care.
Yeah, they're not doing anything.
He keeps pretending there's this great big war on them. Everyone's just like, like what? They read like one article about how it's crazy, and then they move on.
Yeah.
This is the guy.
I think what he's thinking is those articles, the articles coming out saying
They're a
that
fight against his
people are
movement.
crazy is a fight against. It's a very that they don't want to. Because think of it from a Q believer's point of view. If all of this shit is, at least at the very least, if Spygate is real, you don't want to draw attention to it because you don't want people scrounging around looking for information about it, because they've done a very good job at not letting any of the Spygate stuff sort of eke into what they call the mainstream media. But at the same time, it would be incredibly detrimental for the Democratic Party if it were true. So I could see that Q is sort of interpreting it as like
If what were true?
if Spygate,
were true.
Spygate were true, then I could see them being like, okay, well, all we can really publish about it is how fucking crazy this dude is and how anybody who follows him is super fucking insane too, and like they should be exiled from your family. And that's it, because any more discussion on it could potentially bring up, a Spygate facts and turn people on to, even though they wouldn't anyways. Like, nobody cares about Spygate except
it's not on the ballot. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, these are, these congressional and Senate seats, they really have nothing to do with any of this, right? I mean, and the fact that he had kind of turned his pretty extreme story into like a really boilerplate, like get out to vote for senators and congressmen who, I mean, I'm sorry, but like none of these people are revolutionary. I mean, the right wing senators and congressmen are fucking par for the course. Like they're not like anti-establishment, people.
Yeah, to me it seems like the only reason, if I'm Q, to like possibly push for that is so that Trump doesn't get impeached and he can follow through on his, fascist sort of fantasy before,
I mean, or you're an informational initiative that's trying to change people's minds or convince them of a story.
Yeah.
Which is what Q is. And, it's like you tell the story, and then the date comes for voting, and you say, hey, actually what that means is go out and vote.
Yeah, because you guys are Q now, and you're the ones that are in charge of making sure that all of these evil people face justice.
QAnon, or Q, has a lot in common with Insane Clown Posse. When Violent J and what was the other guy's name? That other
Shaggy
guy.
2 Dope.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, Shaggy 2 Dope. When they, revealed that they were going to give you the secret behind the Dark Carnival, everybody was like, holy shit, we're going to know, the deepest, darkest secrets. And then it turned out it was just like, oh, we're Christian. And that is exactly Q,
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, it was all about like voting in the midterms. Like, what? I thought this was about like children's blood and like the balance of the universe.
Yeah, that's the thing that doesn't really track for me is that the balance of good and evil in the it would seem that the midterms are kind of a wash based, if you're really fighting good and evil that is on, if you're really fighting evil and it's on both sides.
A 2,000-year epic war,
Yeah, it's like you would think that it feels a little pedestrian almost to go out and be like, well, make sure to vote for your right guy, and if you see any Antifa members at voting locations, please call local authorities.
I mean, the idea that Antifa is currently terrorizing the population in some way is so fucking ridiculous. But I'd be doing text canvassing or whatever, where you kind of dialogue with people. So this is like a boilerplate message. I'd be like, hi, person. It's Julian with Yes on B. Do you want Los Angeles to stop letting Wall Street invest your taxes in private prisons, guns, and fossil fuels?
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. If you
Straightforward.
Yes, I give you more information, and then we have a conversation from there. So these are some of the responses I got. So this one is, no, I see the biggest social problem as the radical left, unhinged, enraged, psychotic, down with violence, down with hate, down with the left. Just the mindset of someone who's just clearly been watching a lot of Fox News.
Which almost sounds like what a left wing person would say, except you just have to sub
switch.
out. Yeah, you sub it out.
It's the classic mirror image. This one's a pretty damn good one. It's from a guy. I guess you might think I'm a girl. I'm not sure. Anyways, this is his answer to the same boilerplate thing that I sent. Julian, honey, next time you get the urge to text me your political pornography, try getting a lip lock on the snot end of your fuck stick instead. Okay, buddy?
That's great. It's poetic.
It's like But that was like epic bacon like comeback, you know? It's like, oh, the fucking snot under your fuck stick.
It actually that kind
Piss
of
daddy.
I'm surprised that you're getting those kind of responses in Los Angeles.
Oh, dude, all the time. One guy just said, remove, I love guns. But other people just say, I love all of these things, which, you know what? I enjoy holding a gun, playing with guns, playing video games with guns in them. Okay, fine, you love guns. Maybe you don't understand that we're talking about maybe weapons manufacturers instead of like guns, and that we're not trying to change the gun laws or whatever. But private prisons? What part of private prisons are good? There's nothing good about it.
Well, shit, I love private prisons.
Oh, fucking private prisons is fucking great. Another guy said, well, they're probably investing it better than you could. And then I sent him information back saying, well, actually, South Dakota has a public bank, the only one in the country. It has a better credit rating than Chase. It has a better, a better thing than Chase, better something else than JP Morgan. And in 2008, it was the only state that was not in the red from the crisis because of, the public bank invested differently. And so it's just like, nah, man. Like, not only is it not like a coastal elite thing, but it's fucking Dakota and it's a proven model. Yeah. I don't have to talk to you about Germany to tell you it's proven. It's proven in another American state. So I explained that to him, and he just didn't want to. He was just like, those things are unrelated. I'm like, I mean, I'm not like some crazy lefty who doesn't understand the economy. I mean, I've played with stocks. I understand futures. I know how investment works.
Yeah.
This is just bad business. Like using private banks that charge you tons of fees and don't and just keep you in a vice while they invest in shit that doesn't bring your community anything. That's just bad business. Like any good businessman would avoid that deal.
Yeah.
But anyways, I've just gotten a lot of that. But he was saying, yeah, well, actually, I'm fucking happy that my brothers on Wall Street are pumping money into guns. Some guy told me that.
He owned that lib.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, this was the same guy who said, hey, man, yeah, you fucking against guns. Like, oh, well, I'll take you shooting and make a man of you, you fucking, whatever. And so I messaged him back and I said, I would love for you to take me shooting. I'll take you up on that. This is my personal phone number. Please reach out to me and I'll come and shoot with you. I'd love that. I've only ever shot a .22 carabine and it was years ago or whatever. So I'll take you up on that, buddy. And also what I'm talking about is weapons manufacturers and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh yeah, 22, like that's like even my girlfriend wouldn't shoot that, and like what else? He just couldn't. So then I just wrote to him. I'm like, okay, man. Well, I guess you're not gonna take me shooting. Like I thought. Yeah, I guess maybe you just said that to sound tough. And he was like, oh, actually, you brought that up. Like, it's just when you're dealing with a dunce, it's just like you proposed, you offered to take me shooting to make a man out of me. I said, yes.
Yes. And
take me fucking shooting.
And yet these are the people who are responsible for soft guiding the libs, to the light once, the truth is revealed, right?
Yeah. He's like, I'm an NRA member. And I have shares in Smith and Wesson.
If that guy was a true conservative, he would have been over the moon.
Yeah.
That he would have an opportunity to take a pussy lib shooting and be able to impart some of his wisdom and convert you.
My text, the one that I answered him with first, was the most nice, happy, like, oh, I'm excited. I get to go. Like, I was in no way trying to shove in some subtext or something. It was really just positive. I was surprised by his second text because, I mean, obviously, saying someone like that is of good faith, it's maybe a stretch, but I just assumed at least he would say, oh, well, we don't live near each other, but it's cool that you at least want to go check it. It's like, he couldn't even try to I'm not even against. It just blew my mind. It just shows that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not about dialogue. They pretend it's about dialogue. That if you're just willing to try out their way, that they would converse with you. But no, they just want to own you.
Well, it's because nobody has coached them on how to get to that part. They haven't gotten far enough.
Well, they think I'm an NPC. He doesn't expect me to say, yeah, I'll go shooting with you.
Yeah, right.
He's like, oh, you're an NPC. You fucking hate guns. You fucking hate everything.
And they're also not the narrative, but the general sort of ideology is that these people hate you. They think that you are a racist and a homophobe and a everything under the sun the moment that you don't disagree with them. So
you can hate them back.
Can hate them. Yeah.
They're worthy of your hate.
Yeah, they're worthy of your hate. So when somebody comes up, this actually reminds me of a very important lesson that I learned when I was a little kid. I got bullied a lot when I was in junior high because I moved at a time when the friend groups had already formed. And so I was like that like random new kid like in 4th grade when everybody's already friends. And there was a group of guys who were like really nasty to me and they picked on me all the time. I was kind of chubby and I really wanted to fit in. So that made me like a perfect target.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad told me, he was like, well, why don't you ask them if they want to hang out after school? And I was like, what? That's bonkers. These guys hate me. Like, there's no... I would never do that. And he was like, no, do it because they'll be so fucking surprised that you want to hang out with them after the way they've treated you. He was like, they won't know what to do. And see what happens. And then I ended up actually becoming friends with all of these... And I was a terrible human myself once I became friends with them. But it did work.
This fucking story really fell apart.
But it worked. They stopped bullying me, and I joined their bully group, and we bullied together.
That's so heartwarming.
Well, the thing is that people like that when you can sort of insult them and you can sort of like shrug it off and be like, "Oh, hey, we're still cool, man."
Yeah.
And you feel like you're safe talking to that person. You can sort of like, "Well, I can shit talk you. You won't like clutch your pearls over it."
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Yeah. So canvassing has been pretty funny. It's been pretty great. My wife's been canvassing as well. Someone called her a demon. It was pretty good.
Yeah, that it reminds me. There's a Q blogger called Neon Revolt.
Oh yeah,
who you're familiar? This past week, he's been sort of on my case. He gave me the nickname Rat Tail Travis, and he got really angry at me because I was pointing out that a lot of Q people were making these false flag theories about the bombing and the shooting. And he called me a tap water goblin, and.
That's pretty good.
What is that?
I added tap water goblin to my bio. I like that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's why you put that in there. It cracked me up. Wait, what's a tap water goblin?
Well, there's this idea.
It's like a boring goblin?
Well, there's this idea in sort of alt-right circles that tap water is filled with fluoride and makes you stupid. They also think it contains emasculating chemicals.
It makes you gay, yeah.
Yeah, so there's the idea that because he suspects I drink tap water, and therefore that's why I think I like an NPC.
It's also not so subtly a class thing. Oh, you drink tap water. You are a lower. You're not in a position to drink water with bubbles in it or a filtered water.
What a great grift by the water industry to convince people on the right that they should buy bottled water.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, there was recently an Alex Jones skit that was so fucking amazing. He was dressed in an entire frog suit with like black circles around his eyes, screaming about how he's gay. It was so fucking good.
That man is an artist.
But he is losing it lately. He had another great video of him just being filmed by a random passerby, screaming at a piece of shit on the floor,
Yeah, I saw
a piece
that.
of horse shit, screaming at it like it was Beto O'Rourke, and just asking Beto why he wasn't answering. And he's just literally in the middle of the street talking to shit on the ground.
He thoroughly owned that lib.
Yeah.
Fucking amazing.
It's so funny. He probably thought that was genius. He's like, "Oh, look, there's a piece of shit on the ground. I'm gonna talk to it like it's Beto. It won't be able to talk back because it's a piece of shit, but I'm gonna yell at it."
So, I mean, it looks so lonely, especially shot from the exterior, because if you're the guy with the camera, you're really close up, and he's like, Alex's face is all up in yours, and you see the turd, oh, holy shit. But then when you really see what's happening, it's just these two fucking, in their 50s, fat dudes fucking just screaming at shit on the floor in the middle of the street. I mean...
It's like when you watch the like the bonus features of like any of the Marvel movies, and it just looks like two people in like ridiculous looking suits, like standing around like a bunch of green screens, just like playing pretend.
Yeah, Alex Jones is like that, except his green screen is just like rage and filling the screen. So if during even a moment his face doesn't fill the screen and isn't completely enraged, he just looks like what he is, right? It's like when you turn that awful HD filter on your TV and everything looks like it's shot by like a handy cam, even though it's supposed to be The Hobbit.
Yeah.
It's not good.
What was the article that you linked to? It was like something about Huber, and you were like, "Oh, this is important to like take a look at before we talk about the drops." Because
what's up with that article that neither of us read?
There is mention of this idea that Huber, who is the attorney that reports directly to Jeff Sessions, that he is the one that's cooking up all of these indictments and all of this stuff, and that, you know, as the tale goes, that the moment that the Republicans maintain control of the House, and now that they're safe for 2 years, all of the arrests and indictments will become unsealed, and that's, you know, this is really the moment that we're kind of all waiting for, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. Well, enjoy the show. Take out your popcorn.
Yeah, take my popcorn. Gonna need more popcorn for this Michael Jackson eating popcorn gif.
It's actually also a popcorn industry grift. Q is just trying to sell good popcorn. He hasn't officially been endorsed by Redenbacher, but it's coming.
We've got the best popcorn here in Chicago. This is we've got Garrett's popcorn is the best.
I can't believe there isn't Q branded popcorn yet. That feels like in underexplored niche.
Yeah.
That does.
We should, you guys. We should like set up an easy.
QPopcorn.com.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you just rebrand the shittiest popcorn you possibly can.
You ship it all from China. You slap a Q on it. You'll sell it like hotcakes.
Yeah.
Fuck. That actually would be a good grift, boys.
Yeah.
okay.
And these people, they will pay good money for such things.
We don't mean you, listener. You should buy our popcorn.
Yeah.
We think you're smart. We think you're smart for buying our popcorn.
Yeah.
No, you could tell these people that you're grifting them to their face, and they'll still pay you money. It doesn't matter.
Not our listener. Our listener's a high IQ, but that's fine that other people.
I can see that the article you found is from the Washington Times. Already a little bit suspect.
It's Washington Times, not that great of source, but the article is actually pretty good. So,
okay.
So John Huber is a U.S. attorney from Utah. He was nominated by Barack Obama. And like many U.S. attorneys, he handed in his resignation, but then he was renominated by Trump. And so now John Huber was assigned by Sessions to investigate the Uranium One scandals and and also the surveillance of Carter Page by the FBI. And so he is very silently investigating these sorts of conservative media sort of concerns. And so no one quite knows what he's doing, but a lot of QAnon people think that he's the one working on the storm, the 50,000 plus indictments.
Yes.
And so that's why he's been so silent and mysterious. He's been working with a team of hundreds of...
And no leaks. There's been no leaks from the Huber investigations.
Yeah, I wonder why. You said that this guy, he resigned when Obama left, or...
Yes, there were dozens of the Trump administration asked for the resignation.
Oh, okay, so he made them resign, and then he rehired because he realized they were maybe the best person for the job.
Yeah, so he was sort of like this drain the swamp sort of strategy where he asked for mass resignations, and they all offered them, and they took them all, but I guess he rehired several of them, and he was one of them.
Trump drained the swamp and then filled it with the gel that you use to disinfect your hands.
So
now everyone has to just fucking slop around in that.
So interesting. Yeah, this article is talking about it's titled John Huber's FBI Justice Department probe shrouded in mystery, and it's basically talking about how he's continuing this long investigation and there's been no leaks, and
there's nothing there.
There's a quote from Jim Jordan, Ohio Republican, who's been very sort of Spygate.
He's pro Q, yeah.
He said, I would just like to know what he's doing. I'll take anything. All I know is that we haven't heard a single thing about what he's doing.
Yeah, but that's what this whole thing relies on, is they believe, because so many investigations from the left have been damaging to the right or delaying to the right or annoying to the right, they believe that the most damaging thing is just to have an investigation. Doesn't have to have any proof, doesn't even have to be a real investigator. They had Jacob Wohl out there investigating Mueller rape claims, which immediately resulted in him and his partner showing their dicks to the world in some sort of fucking hotel fucking pancake waiting room, and then just humiliate themselves absolutely and totally. And then there's a few other ones like this, like Jacob Wohl's previous investigation was a Seth Rich investigation, and his buddy with his fly open, same thing. And of course that led to absolutely nothing, but it didn't matter because during that time people were talking about an ongoing investigation, and in America at this point, and this is something
that's all you need.
The conservatives complain about this all the time, right? That it's you're guilty until proven innocent, with the Me Too movement or whatever. But then they really want you to believe someone's guilty until proven innocent when it's just one of these we're investigating this.
Right, when it's one of theirs. I mean, yeah, totally. Everybody does the same shit, everybody plays by the same rules. You just have to decide which shitty...
I'm not sure, though. I don't know if there's like a James O'Keefe of the left. Like, there's not like that massive grifter who's willing to like dress up in a racist pimp outfit and try to go like make an Acorn employee like say something wrong. I mean, that just isn't really the left.
I mean, yeah, that's more like your inside editions, your
I mean, they might diss them, but they're not really like gotcha with that stuff. There's no point. There's no win there, right?
No, because yeah, there really isn't, and I think it's because they know, like CNN knows that kind of gotcha journalism doesn't work on liberals.
It doesn't work on liberals, yeah, because it's the whole idea behind this gotcha thing on the right is, oh, you say you're a socialist, or you say you want human rights, or you say you want equality, or you say you're not racist, or you say we're racist, or whatever you want to lead with. And then it's like, and then they either make up something or find that one thing that they can find. It's like, oh, and it's like, well, they spent their whole life doing the opposite thing. And they don't have to prove anything, of course, because, like Charlie Kirk said, as he got fucking furious at Cenk Uyghur.
Or Jacob Wall.
I live every day as a capitalist, Cenk. And then it turns out he was living with his fucking parents. And,
as a capitalist.
Yeah, as a capitalist. Which is actually the most capitalist thing ever, inheriting all the money from your parents and just fucking being a wastrel.
Yeah, just like living in the base. He's like Billy Madison with his two buddies, just fucking living in the basement, floating on floaties, drinking beersies, smoking ciggies. I mean...
Charlie Kirk, come on QAnon Anonymous, baby.
Jacob Wall, right?
No, I'm talking about Charlie Kirk.
Oh, Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk lost his mind with Cenk. Jacob Wall then continued to...
Honestly, they are all the same. They're just all the same to me.
They're lining up to get owned online. And they're all just like these fucking gum-chewing teenage Republican debate guys who don't believe in anything.
Speaking of all the same, did you guys see Hillary Clinton say all black people look the same in her
I did see that.
Excuse me? She was bad at this.
She is so bad. And even the interviewer is like, and the fucking crowd just eats it up. Like they don't even realize like what a fucking
what exactly.
So they're talking about the interview. She's doing
Let's go
some
with Travis
conference.
because you have a tendency to misquote Hillary Clinton.
Fair enough.
There was an instance where Hillary Clinton confused Cory Booker and
Keith Ellison.
Yes, right.
Jesus
Well, she didn't confuse them. The interviewer confused them, or it was Cory Booker and Eric Holder, or
right.
something like that. Yeah,
The interviewer confused Keith Ellison and Cory Booker, and then Clinton quipped, "Well, they all look the same." With
the worst way.
Was she kidding? Because that's a kind of dumb joke. Like she sounds like she's being ironic. I mean, she should know better because she's a politician. But
I mean, I could see it both ways. I could see that maybe she was like, "Hi, well, they all look the same, right? Like, because we're all subtly racist, and like, you would make that."
Yeah, to me,
kind
it's a
of
meta
confusion.
commentary on like the fact that. But it's as a politician, I just think it's very bad.
No.
It was a very tone deaf joke.
Yeah, she's always been tone deaf about racial
is.
stuff. She's been shitty with race
she's
forever.
Communicator.
Yeah, but then also just totally willing to run like a racist campaign against Obama.
When I watched it, what it really felt like is it felt like your grandma.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
fucking up and
is
saying
so
something kind of like, you shouldn't. That's really that's not good. Back to you were talking about that Huber article and it mentioned Carter Page and there was some Carter Page news these last couple weeks. It is that he is suing the DNC and I believe the FBI for slandering his name as calling him a Russian agent. He's suing both of them, which is either brilliant or incredibly stupid.
It's just American.
Because
there's nothing that doesn't end in everybody suing each other.
Because if you are a Russian spy and you sue somebody because you say, hey man, like I don't want you calling me a Russian spy anymore, and then they do discovery and they find out that you are in fact a Russian spy,
nothing will happen.
Yeah, nothing will happen.
People will put out memes to the exact opposite and we will move on in a week. It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, that's true.
It doesn't fucking matter anymore.
Yeah. The thing about Carter Page is that he is on record as giving energy industry documents to Russian spies.
Yes.
And he has called himself and informal advisor to the Kremlin, and he has gone to Moscow and denounced U.S. foreign policy, and so it seems a lot like a Russian agent.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to imagine. So if you think that for the FISA warrants are legitimate at all, and I don't want to get into like whether or not this is an overreach of power or a violation of the Fourth Amendment or anything like that, but if it's valid at all, then it seems like he ought to be a prime target.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, yes. He's a doctor, by the way. I had no idea. He's an actual doctor.
So is Seuss.
I want to say like one last thing about this Huber article, because there's a quote from Solomon L. Weisenberg. He served as the independent as a lawyer on the independent counsel with Kenneth Starr, and so he's sort of commenting about
Kenneth
friend of the
Starr's
show.
Great guy, yeah.
he's commenting about the investigation, and this is the kicker of the line. I'm not worked up about the lack of action because I know a lot of time you don't think anything is going on and then someone is indicted, he said. Did anyone really expect mass indictments of people in the FBI? He's just saying that like a lot of people are talking about like, oh, wow, it looks like this investigation is going on for a long time. There's been no indictments. Seems like nothing's happening. And he's basically saying, well, of course, like, yeah, these things are slow and you never know what the result is going to be. And of course, there's not going to be mass indictments of people in the FBI, which is funny because the QAnon people expect that they're going to be mass indictments of people in the FBI.
But what's great about it too is it's this classic move of like, okay, I'm going to tell you something's going to happen, then it doesn't happen. And then I treat you like you're dumb or crazy for having believed me in the first place. Like it's some fucking weird thing of judo. It's like, oh, you thought that they were going to massively indict people in the FBI because I wrote in 8 of my drops that they're going to massively.
Dude, I didn't mean that. I meant what they were. I meant that it was possible.
He makes it even better than that, though. He goes, "Did you really think that?" And then he doesn't follow up. It's the Q thing. If you just keep asking questions, like it doesn't.
Yeah. Q did this with like the Nunes memo, the release of the memo. They thought that the memo was going to blow the lid off the deep state.
It did. It changed the world.
Yeah, it changed. Yeah, then they did it again with
the
Inspector General Horitz's report. They thought that when this report comes out, then that'll expose the deep state. Everyone will figure out the truth. And of course, they released the report, and it's like, Comey could have done better.
You know what I think they think? They think there's like a black version of the White House that lives in like inverted underneath the White House.
Yeah,
and
like
that's where the deep
upside down.
state. That's where the deep state has opposite gravity machines, and so they're actually like stepping on the same floor as Trump, and they're just one tiny little layer of separation, and they're running the real country. You know what I mean? It's the Black House.
Sadly, it's probably more like Jeff Bezos and like, just like the rich like company owners that just kind of get together at like an Arby's or something and sort of.
Now they go straight to the president and have meetings with everybody, and then they install like the infrastructure, and then they collaborate with the FBI and CIA, and they get a bunch of contracts, and
and then they bounce.
Yeah, the deep state is everybody, including Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a grifter, and
the deep state is anybody who's got more money than you do.
The reason there's a deep state is because there's fucking money in politics, so the politicians don't need to represent your interest
anymore. And
the reason why there's money in politics is because of people like Trump.
Yes,
they spent their entire fucking life buying political favors with money. So to go and clean the swamp that you spent your entire fucking life paying into and supporting is just rich.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, this is why the QAnon people said that, this is part of Trump's 30-year plan. This is why he's been donating to both Democrats and Republicans all this time. He's been ingratiating himself with the swamp in order to take it down.
Does that mean that Trump is going to live to 110 years old? Like, I mean, does he just at that point look like Mothra? Like what?
I would not be surprised. I mean, for a chubby guy who eats burgers and Diet Cokes, I mean, he's got the energy of a fucking 17-year-old boy.
It is insane. Just the incredible nervous sort of energy. He just constantly.
Yeah, I think he feels, because he's so fucking insecure, like he's always just waiting for the next punch, right? But then also he doesn't waste energy. This is why he's actually a next level operator and a pimp, is because he doesn't waste any energy, like when he didn't close that umbrella before he got on the plane. You don't need to waste excess energy when you're that smart.
Yeah, you just need to let that shit fucking blow off into the wind. Which is funny too, because I would never leave anything that could blow around near a plane, because I would be so worried about something getting sucked into the engine.
No, but Trump Trump getting on a plane that last moment before he crosses the Rubicon of wind into the safeness of the actual flight is very dangerous for him. His hair flips over so many times during that crucial point. So when he looked down and saw the choice between closing his umbrella or looking like someone who has dementia and not having his hair flip over again, he chose the hair.
Yeah.
Of course, in the QAnon community, they thought that was a signal, right? When do you need an umbrella? During a storm.
Oh, yes.
And so he was saying that you're going to need an umbrella because the
Yeah.
storm is near.
Dude, Mr. Magoo... Mr. Magoo is a prophet. That's the whole QAnon movement is just like, well,
you look at like,
in episode 4, Mr. Magoo walked directly into a giant dinosaur's mouth. What were his plans?
Here's the thing. What they don't seem to understand is that when you're an adult, you have no time for fun little clues and pranks like this. Like everything is so you're inundated by so many responsibilities and worries and regrets and fears and all this stuff. I don't know any adults that have time to set up a little thing so somebody can see it. Like, I've never done that in my entire life.
But Trump plays 5D chess. He's a super genius that the rest of us cannot possibly understand.
And if you think of Trump and you think of like a healthy relationship as you age together, you're in your 30s, you're in your 40s, you maybe leave a note for each other once in a while, buy each other flowers, take each other out for dinner, remind each other why you love each other.
Yeah, all good pointers.
All good pointers, and all of these things are 100% not being received by Trump's wife. Like, there's no way he's an attentionate man. So how the fuck is he going to be attentionate to his lover, Q, and the QAnon community? He isn't. He just doesn't have that in him.
You don't know that. He and Melania could have a very, very loving, warm, caring
if
relationship.
Melania was ever written a note with a heart in it, she would fucking Instagram it because she would spend that entire week weeping.
I don't follow her on Instagram, unfortunately.
I don't.
No. I didn't even know she had an Instagram.
My favorite of her was that latest photo of her sitting next to like a kind of African dignitary in like full color, and it just, I mean, the fucking picture, there's no need for a caption. It's just so funny inherently. It's always good.
I wonder about the relationship. I wonder why, of all the causes she could have chosen for her like first lady cause, she chose cyberbullying.
Bullying,
like that. She had to have been conscious.
Really chose the wrong thing.
It was very on the nose.
You realize why? Because recently she said she thinks of herself as the most bullied person on earth.
Oh.
So she's fighting bullying because her and Trump are getting bullied. Like, that's how fucking warped the reality is for them.
And yet the sentiment from the right is, you know, it's like, well, sticks and stones. It's like, oh man, like, fuck all this PC bullshit. Like, can't anybody take a joke? And yet,
you interrupted Ted Cruz's incredibly expensive meal.
It's like,
you're such a
nothing makes
snowflake.
sense. Nothing tracks. Nothing makes sense. This is why Q has to be right. So some kind of truth and solid act can lift us from this place of just non sequitur fucking
Honestly,
garbage.
I'm here as an arbiter, you know, and I have a compassionate love for both of you, and I'm very, you know, cognizant of the fact that if Q is right, we're going to have one very miserable Travis and one very happy Jake. But if Q is wrong...
No, I'll be miserable because if Q is true and we start to see...
I'll be miserable regardless.
We'll be miserable. I'll be miserable regardless.
Guys, I'm going to be sad anyways. Doesn't matter.
But the thing is if here's my problem is that if it ends up being true and like we see, you know, Clinton and Obama and Holder and Comey and all these people like marched out to the gallows, I'm going to feel really bad about even having a moment where I went, that would be interesting. And now I'm like sitting and watching this like the fascist regime like really take over and like execute your political enemies, which is something that we've really never seen in the United States, in my lifetime at least. And I'll be sitting there going like, I feel bad for even entertaining, just for entertainment purposes, hoping that this could be not a LARP, so I could just rub it in Julian's face and be like, I knew it.
It's true. It's true that the more you've learned about this movement, that the more it would be a bitter victory.
It really would be a bitter victory. I'd rub it in your guys' faces for maybe like 30 seconds and then be like, and then I would mourn with the rest of the country.
Well,
I'll tell you what. If Q was true, I would certainly be shocked.
Yes.
But I don't think I would be despondent, just because the reason QAnon is so appealing to people is because it promises like a wonderful change, to the country. That the idea is that there are all these secret evil people who've been getting away with unimaginable crimes who are finally going to be brought to justice. Number one, and then number two, they imagine a sort of post-storm America that involves universal prosperity. I saw a post on Voat that was talking about, that was sort of imagining what the post-storm America is going to be. They talked about, there's going to be no debt, and there's going to be free energy, and there's going to be
they want free shit. They should have voted for Bernie. They should have voted for Bernie. He's the free shit guy.
But the idea is that the elites are sort of pricing regular people out of the cities, and they're making everything harder for regular people for no good reason. And there's a way to have this sort of universal prosperity without sort of Bernie-style socialism.
How the fuck do they look at the Monopoly Man and see like Beelzebub? Like, it's just the Monopoly Man. He's a shitty capitalist. That's what he is. He's not going to be good to you.
Yeah.
He's going to keep milking you for profits. I wanted to talk a little bit about Voat because I did, I opened it again. I hadn't opened it in a few days or maybe some weeks even, but I fell on a thread that is very much this kind of central debate that very early in the episodes we were talking about with Jake, where you were like, no, I think the majority of the movement is like nonviolent or whatever. And that was still the days where Reddit was, happening and stuff. But I thought this was a very good kind of example of where the movement is currently at.
Yeah, it turns out that the only reason that it seemed like the people were nonviolent and non-anti-Semitic or racist is because there were Reddit rules in place that prevented them from being as such.
And then they broke them, and then they got kicked off. Okay, so it's called Ignore Posts Calling for Violence. 12 days ago, 837 upvotes on this. I have noticed an increase of posts calling for violence. This is a shill tactic to demonize the Q movement when the time is right. Think Comet Ping Pong and Hoover Dam. Ignore their attempts and continue to spread information. These people are stupid. Quote, the masses tend to panic in such situations. No war, no civil unrest. Clean and swift. Q post 22. Okay. So then people are piling up behind him saying, so I'm just reading the top responses. So the shills are out in force today. I've noticed calls for violence and switching to other subs. Don't buy into this bullshit. Trump's plan is working. The shills attacks will only get worse as the red wave approaches. Then another guy. Thank you all for the reminder. Pretty new to this site, and I noticed that there were people saying some pretty crazy stuff about killing people and the like. Thought it was perhaps overzealous patriots, but this heads up is a great reminder that true patriots aren't calling for such things. Thanks a ton for bringing this up. And then the next guy. True patriots know that the right to bear arms is not purely cosmetic. So already getting a little creepier. Then the next guy. No, but it's a last resort. You have a right to defend yourself, and that's about it. And even then, the authorities should be involved as much as your side. Be on the right side of justice. So someone having some kind of conscience. Yeah. And then you have a right to defend yourself and your country against tyranny. The Second Amendment isn't there to protect you from a home intruder. While you do have a right to protect your property and yourself against violence, the intent of the Second Amendment is to allow the people to keep the government in check, lest it assert undue authority and forget its place as subject to the people and the consent of the people. So, and this is, to be honest, I agree with you to an extent, but this little mantra of don't be violent and last resort, meh. You see some Antifa stooges beating up a handicapped kid wearing a Trump hat. Beat the living shit out of them and get video. Okay, so that next. Beating up a person with a disability has no place in this world. Just picking right up on that with no checking. It's right up there with kicking a dog. It's a crime against humanity. These people cannot be reasoned with. They are inciting fear and baiting us. I, for one, will not stand idly by with waiting for the so-called Calvary. See something, say something, do something. So... Ooh, flirting with calling for violence there. Okay, yeah, but they're committing crimes and no one is doing anything about this. In this case, we have people in very high places handling it. I see your point, though, absolutely. Next one. NPC human. Violence is last resort. Patriot punches NPC human in the face. NPC human, ... I guess it shows that you can punch an NPC in the face, and it's good. Okay, so blah, blah, blah. I think there are a lot of people on here that are just trolling and have too much time on their hands. You just got to learn to filter out the BS, skip the shit, and get out to the actual intelligent dialogue. Just ignore it. Just ignore it. Yeah, someone else. It's kind of like trolling. It's funny if you're in on it. Otherwise, it just looks insane. And then someone pretty much exclusively shills, really trying to make sure that that's good. And then it says, the streets will not be safe for these people. Whoa, fuck that Q dude with all his calls for insinuation of violence. Morons. These fucks killed children in the most horrible ways imaginable. They ate their fucking bodies. Do you seriously think people saying there should be violence against them are all shills? Are you so fucking cucked you've utterly bought into the only valid use of force comes from the government mantra? If the plan works, great. They suffer violence from the government. If it doesn't, great. They suffer violence from other sources. It's really that simple. No shills, just people being honest.
You know, that's impeccable logic. You know?
Yep.
If the people are really committing these horrendous crimes, and you can't count on the authorities to administer justice like they should, then why not take justice in your own hands?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's because you're 100% positive that these specific people are committing these acts, even though there is little to no evidence that. I mean, and I say little because you can twist some of the evidence that does exist to go, oh, well, maybe there is something going on here. But to a point where, I mean, this is my least favorite thing about any of these message boards is one person will say something and it's immediately bought as that is truth. That is exactly what's going on. And it's
a very supportive community. Really.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. There's a lot of, they continue to negotiate a little bit. I think they will die in prison or plead guilty to something else to stop the child killing shit from seeing the light of day, and then we burn them all. Hypothetically speaking, of course. I love hypothetically burning them all.
Hypothetically. I'm not really violent.
Yeah.
I just maybe imagined Hillary Clinton burning at the stake.
Then the one guy fighting back against that kind of violent sounding guy. Mr. Mouth has to act Mr. Big Shot because he doesn't have a dick, but wants everyone to think he does. Okay? And the next guy's like, heads up, it's necessary. Letting the other side know that you are armed and willing to use that side arm will eliminate 100% more conflicts without harm than keeping it concealed. Now, who exactly is spewing bullshit there, dickless name caller?
Sounds like there's some infighting in the Q community.
Oh, I hear your weak shit all the time, Mr. Mouth. Think because you make videos it makes you something? It would help if you weren't always wrong, you cuck hypocrite. Should have known from the beginning you were a fraud. Oh, man. Yeah, so it keeps going. But essentially, I think the community just, some of them are there for nonviolence. Some of them are there to really make
and I
pay.
think as things start to break down, you're going to see a much bigger split of the community of the guys who were saying, "Oh, well, the Q must have failed, and it's our job to sort of pick up the flag afterwards and run with it." And some people going like, "Oh man, like I'm not in it for that." I was here for the story. I was here for the Spygate. That shit was interesting, but it turns out that none of that shit really panned out. So I'm kind of just going to go back to like playing COD and like masturbating a little bit every now and again, and
I mean, the latest shooting was an incel.
The synagogue guy?
No, after that, there's already been a shooting since that.
The yoga guy?
Pittsburgh, yeah, the yoga guy who was like a woman hater, incel guy online. Thank you so much for tuning in, listener. This was a fantastic week of QAnon Anonymous. A little bit of a messy, personal, having a good time episode among buddies. If that makes you want to write a 7-tweet thread to us, giving us all the criticism while also not supporting us on Patreon, hey man. Otherwise, we love you. Just for listening, you're a champion. You're a hero. We have started a mailbag. Write in at QAnonanonymous@gmail.com. You can ask us anything. In fact, it would be probably funnier if you didn't ask us about Q, although that would work too. But if you want to ask us personal stuff or just random shit, it would be pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
Having a bit of levity in the show, a bit of personal stuff, especially if it's interacting with you guys, I think that would be a pleasure. So write in even if your question is weird and funny, because that's what's up.
Yeah, and I specialize in answering weird and funny questions in a weird and funny way.
Travis View, you are on Twitter at Travis_View. Please go follow our man Travis. You can follow us at QAnon Anonymous. Also, Currently, we're really trying to grow. We're at episode 14. We now have 3 premium episodes, but we really can't grow unless we start to get some supporters. We have already some in the Patreon, which is really cool, but if you could go in there and contribute $5 or even just spread the word about the show, it would really help us put out more episodes. We want to put them out more often. We want to deal with things more quickly, and the production values are continuing to go up as well. So we're really trying to give you like the best product. Obviously, we're never going to be like a hardcore history show or whatever. We're always going to be a little more on the kind of jokey talk show side.
Yeah, armchair experts, if you will.
Exactly. If you're coming to us for the news, you should probably find a second podcast to accompany it.
Yeah, this is more. This is more like the scene in The Simpsons where they go inside Homer's brain, and it's just like. And it's just like monkeys sort of like grinding wheels and picking gnats out of each other's backs.
That's right. We're the result of what happens when you leave 50 monkeys in a room and ask them to create a podcast. But please go on Patreon and follow, support us there. Follow us on Twitter. What else? Do we have anything else? Is there anything else to plug, Travis? Do you want to plug anything? Travis is I think he's going to end up real proud of him.
Well, yeah, thank you, but you're going to have to cut that out because they asked me not to talk about
We got him, folks. We finally got Travis to admit on air that he's been a shill this entire time. He's been collaborating with the enemy behind closed doors. I will not cut this out. The truth will reach you, patriot.
We'll be back next week. If you're not a premium subscriber, go check out our episode. It's about Ultima Thule and the Nazi mystics. And it really, I think, sheds a lot of light about the mystic roots of what later became kind of Hitler's more pragmatic and dark political movement. But it's interesting to know that it all started with, fucking Icelandic myths about giants. Just to know that that's how ridiculous the Nazis are is always a pleasure. And also you get to find out about all these modern people who are carrying on the torch for the Thule Society and the Germaner Orden and other Volkish occultists.
They're not the best writers.
No, they're pretty bad at writing. Although, dude, honestly, if you want to hear like a Weird Al, like a Nazi Weird Al version of a variety of Beatles songs, this one guy is your man. And yeah, we covered that on the premium episode.
Fuck, I gotta go. I just got a text. Somebody just opened a sealed indictment on me. I'll catch you guys later.
Okay, bye, Jake.
See you in Gitmo.